This is a small demo screen recording for one of my customers. It's originally a German customer, but anyway, I will do that in English so I can reuse it for other customers. And that's also why I do not mention any name. It's about Tableau External Actions, available since 2022-4. And as always, in the documentation, you will find a nice little animation that shows that you can integrate a new element into your dashboards that has a button, and you can confirm or connect that to one of the so-called Salesforce flows. In the documentation, you will find that under Integrate External Actions. You see that you should be familiar a bit with Tableau, with Salesforce flows. That's not a problem because Trailhead from Salesforce is for free. You can jump into that build flows with Flow Builder trail and learn about Salesforce flows. Especially, you will learn that there are several flow types, and that and here you can see that Tableau External Actions only work with auto-launched flows. As the name tells us, this does not have any user interface with the user, and that's a particular problem for my customer, because the customer wants to click on a dashboard, issue an action, and then a browser window opens and you can just hand over the data and start working from there. That wouldn't work, but I found a nice little workaround here. As you might be aware, this is of course a demo org, and there are so-called cases in Salesforce. That might be one that is what the customer wanted. The customer wanted to issue cashbacks from the user interface, so money that is sent back to the customer. And that could be a case, a service case more or less. As you can see here, there are several ways of having cases, description, and always an item that is associated to that, and also an owner who should be working on that. That's one thing that we can create with a flow. And the other thing that we can create with a flow is, and that's always somewhere near for a user in Salesforce, is so-called task. So my idea was to have a flow that creates a task that is associated to a case that was also created before, and that way work around the use case that was requested here. As you can see in the flows, you find that in setup. Setup can be accessed here by that little icon. When you're in setup, you can simply search for flows, and then you get a list of all flows. And as you can see, there's already a flow Tableau action, and I will jump into that later. But first of all, let me show you how to create a new flow. That's very easy. Just click on new flow. You get the different flow types, and ours is an auto-launched flow. I will create that, and I get a default flow that just has a start and an end. Very important in the beginning is to create 2 resources, or maybe 3 resources here, and these are called variables. A variable is something that is a variable within the flow. So for example, the revenue that is handed over by the Tableau user clicking on some button. Of course, that's a number, and very important, that's available for input, because then it's visible from Tableau when I configure that. The other resource would be a user, the username. And the third one is the customer name, also coming from Tableau. So when we look into our Tableau dashboard for the demo purposes here, of course, and I'm just doing that for the demo purposes here, we see the first 4 customer names, which are unfortunately not available in Salesforce. So I will create simply these customer names here as contacts, so I can show how to hand over and find that record within the Salesforce environment. So for example, I will create that Raymond Bach, and that's associated to some of the accounts here, not too many available here. And also I will create Natalie Weber. That is maybe with another customer. And that's it. So this is for demo purposes only, of course. So in the flow, we now have the contacts, and we will get the contacts by get records. So this everything has a label here in the flow builder, and that's tab get contact. And that's of course associated with the contact. And then we have to find the right contact here. Well, the field is the field from the object, so from the contact, and that contact always has a full name, and that should contain, or maybe it should match, but contain might be easier, the customer name that was handed over into the variable of that flow here. So we see that all the variables are offered here very easily, and I will just make that very quick here, and that's it. Just to test if that works, I will add an action here also. What we also can do is, maybe I should have done that in the beginning. So one action could be to send an email. And I want to use that just for a bit like confirmation that it worked. Send an email to myself. Email me, and it should just contain, maybe in the body, it could contain the customer name, and also I will take this and maybe also the revenue. And then in the subject, it should again contain the customer name, maybe something like, or maybe something like new case for customer name. Okay, and then of course it should have a recipient list, and that's just me. Okay, let's test that. For that I have to save it, give it a name. That's my Tableau External Action Test. Save, and for every flow that I saved, I also have to activate that. I can do run and debug, so let's try debug. Customer name should be something like, for example, Darren Martin. Revenue 555, username Dirk. Run. And you see it was completed, and there's an email coming in. That's exactly just the email that I configured. Okay, so this is working. The question is, does it work from Tableau? And well, I have to configure the workflow here. We were stuck there. So configure that, goes into Salesforce and looks for all the available flows. And here's exactly, don't worry, I'm Grant Lawrence in that demo environment here. So that's me. And here are the 3 required inputs. And I select the sheet that I want to refer data from, and that's our product detail sheet. That's the only sheet available in that dashboard, so that's easy to say. And the customer name is just the, as you can see, I can pick all the columns out of that, and also the filters and also parameters. So I can more or less pick everything that is available here. I take the sum of sales as revenue, and the username is somewhere available as user display name. That should be me, maybe in the end. And then I can configure that button. I will leave it just like that, and make it a bit smaller. So when I select Natalie Weber and click on send data, that's completed. And it took a moment, but here's the email, Natalie Weber, and the revenue associated with her. That's just these. Okay, let's extend that flow here. We have the contact, which is the customer name out of the Tableau dashboard. And we need one more thing. we need one more thing to just also for the demo purposes. We need to get myself, like Grant. Grant Lawrence. So get Grant. That's just necessary because I have to, show the task somewhere in some user, and that's why I need to get a user here. It's just very down the list. There it is. I have to get the user, and the full name of the user should be Grant Lawrence. That's just the demo user that is used here everywhere, and that's why I need to get that user just for demo purposes. Okay. Now to the real stuff here. I have to create the case. So this is create the case. I just create one, and I want to associate all the resources separately, and that is a case. Here it is, case. Well, the case has something that's called a subject. That's kind of logical, and that should be maybe something like create, or maybe I pick the customer name first, and then just type text around that. Create
credit note for the customer.
The other thing is that the status, so I can find that, and also that this is a needed field for the case is the status is new maybe, and also I want to include something in the comments. Maybe there's a comments, and I want to include in the comments something. Well, this something could be a kind of text that is put together out of the customer name and so some kind of text containing the information out of the dashboard. And this is called a text template. I could also put it together with a calculated string, but well, this is the subject or the comment template. And I want to insert resources here. That is the customer name, and also the revenue, and also the user name, and maybe something like today as a date. And then I can write something like, please create
A credit note for customer name with amount, revenue, and this is issued by the username on today.
Something like this. Okay, I want to use that template here in the case, and that's it. Next and finally, I want to create a task here. That's again a create record. Create task associated with the case, and that task has several fields that I need to fill in here. First of all, the owner of that task is the user that has to execute that. Well, we got Grant out of the flow, and here it is. The record variables is the user from getGrant, from that node that was getGrant. And there I have the contact ID, which I want to use here. Next, I want to have a subject for that task. And then I have something that is associated, and that's called what ID, related to ID. And that's some object that is associated to that case, to that task. And that's a case ID from that we just created. Case ID from create the case. And finally, we need to associate who this is related to. So a kind of person. And remember, we created the contacts that with some names, so we can test that. And we took the contact out of the system that with that top get contact thing. And here we have that individual ID, which is associated to that. So done. Let's save that. as a new version. Okay, so we found that our flow is not working. Things can go wrong, of course, that's why we have a debug function here. Best case, I can simply click on the issue here and see, well, that I associated the contact ID here for grant. Well, that's not correct. Let's take get grant and have the user ID, which is simply that ID here, and it's shown as user ID. And also the individual for the who ID, I selected the individual ID, so it must be for get contact, it must be again the user ID, or the contact ID in this case. It's so simply the ID of that thing. Let's save first. So let's check if this is working. I click on debug. I give it a customer name, Seth Vernon. Revenue something, and or username also something. Run. And it seems to be working. And here's the email that came in. And also let's check for the case. Let's reload this page with all the cases and then look for Vernon. And here's that case that says create credit note for Seth Vernon. Also, it contains the text that I was putting together here. So final check if this is working from Tableau. For that, because I changed the flow, I have to reload that button here, that item. And when I reload, it says, well, you also have to configure it again. I didn't change actually anything, but it always tells that. So let's quickly step through that, same as before, setting that up, and that's done. So I select maybe Natalie this time and say send data. There's the email coming in. Let's check for Natalie. Credit note for Natalie Weber. That's the case. And also let's go to my homepage and check my tasks and see that I have a task to check this case for Natalie Weber, and the case to create the credit note is directly attached to that. So that would be immediately in my context of working, and I could check that, and maybe there's a workflow in behind to create that credit note right away from here. That depends maybe on the situation of the customer. But I think it's shown that I can create a case. And maybe a quick summary. I created an auto launch flow. I got the contact by the customer name out of the variable that I was handing over. I just received my own record. That's not just for the demo case. I created a case and a task is associated to that case, and I emailed me with some information about that. And of course, I could create a more complex thing here, but I can directly attach that to the user interface here and have it set up with the customer name and the revenue from the dashboard and also my display name. And that's it. That's maybe the demo that was here for this case. Thank you very much.